What up, gang? How we doing? I'm excited. Today, we're going to do a little macronutrient primer. So what does that mean? So Angie and I asked the group, or Angie asked the group, what do you guys want to learn about most? And I'm really excited because one of the answers is macros. And I love this stuff. I love talking about it. And I love just having a space to give like all the background information because I feel like it's really like useful. You know what I mean? So I'm big into like digging into why behind stuff, and so I feel like if I can give that to you guys, you'll have a better understanding of nutrition, and it'll be awesome. So that's what we're gonna do. And the other thing about it is, I'm not just. It wouldn't be fair for me to just give you like, hey, these are the macros you need. Like, go eat this amount, because you're an individual, right? I don't know you, because right now I'm just talking to my computer. But no, you're an individual, and individual needs are going to vary. And so, my goal today is just kind of educate you a little bit on the context, right? Like the big picture, where to get started, and then like where to go from there, and how do you know, like, kind of if you're on the right track, that sort of thing. So I made a sweet PowerPoint. Here it is. Let me give that to you. All right. So it's macronutrient primer, aka nutrition for gains. All right, gains in health, gains in muscle, kind of an oxymoron, but gains in fat loss, right? Like that's what we're all here for. So we want to know what do we eat? How do we eat to look our best, be our healthiest, feel our best, and just feel amazing, right? So you may have heard the term macros thrown out there before. What does that even mean? So there's macronutrients and there's micronutrients. Macronutrients are fuels. They have calories. Our body runs off that. We put the fuel in, our body burns it up, and that's how we live, right? So there's four macronutrients: protein, carbs, fat, and alcohol. Don't get too excited though. Alcohol is not a necessary macro, so you do not need it before you go and tell your doctor, hey, like, hey man, I need to get more alcohol in my macros. Like, no, you actually don't. You can live off protein, carbs, and fat, and you basically need all three. Carbs you need a lot less of than people have previously thought, but needing and feeling good and sustaining are two different things, right? So let's just say, for the sake of this little lesson, protein, carbs, and fat are the main sources of fuel for our body that we're going to run on, which is going to make us feel amazing. So as far as that energy, protein and carbs both have 4 calories per gram, right? So for 1 gram of protein, that's by weight, there's 4 calories. All right. Fat has 9 calories per gram, which has to do a little bit with the fat phobia we experienced in the 90s, which I'll talk about later. And some of the negative health consequences is often associated with fat, and why that's maybe not exactly true. And then alcohol, 7 calories a gram. And the other thing about alcohol to take note of, like when you consume alcohol, your body doesn't metabolize anything else until alcohol's out of your system. So it really kind of throws you for a wrench, especially when you're in a fat loss diet, because you stop metabolizing your carbs, you stop utilizing body fat for fuel, and you stop pretty much all processes related to fuel until you burn off the alcohol. So something to think about. All right. And then micros, you can think about them like oil, right? So if, like, in your car, you put gasoline in the engine and burns it, that's what makes it run. But the oil is what kind of lubricates the machine and keeps it running. And that's what micros are. They're essential to make the machine run. They're essential to all these little processes in our body. But just like oil in a car, like, I know not everybody changes their oil every 3,000 miles, right? Like, you can go longer without it. And just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? So you can go a long time with a vitamin and a mineral deficiency. You will be operating suboptimally, but unlike the macros, you won't die of starvation. So, take that for what it's worth. They're 100% necessary. We just they don't actually provide fuel the way macros do. But it's vitamins, minerals, that's micronutrients, okay? We need, obviously, in an optimal situation, we have the appropriate amount of macros, and all of our stores of vitamins and minerals are filled as well. I eat. Moving on. All right. So here, before I just say, you need this many carbs, this much fat, like, let's look at the big picture. Body composition is what most of us are after, right? Meaning, yes, we want weight loss. If we're overweight, we want weight loss, let's just say. But like, we're not looking to because if you just focus on weight loss as opposed to body composition, that's a combination of fat and muscle lost. So that you see a different number on the scale and you take up less space in the world in relationship to gravity, but you look exactly the same. Most people don't want that. Most people want what's called body composition change, which is the weight loss is accompanied by having more muscle and less body fat, right? So that you look tighter, you look toned, you have, the right shape and all that stuff. So that's why we're going to say body composition instead of weight loss, because they're actually two different things. They're different. They're different, related but different. So there's a hierarchy, things that are most important, and then, down the hierarchy, things are less important. So the most important thing in changing body composition is calories in, calories out, energy balance. So if you are looking to gain weight, you need to take in more calories than you burn. If you're looking to lose weight, you need to take in fewer calories than you burn. I hope I just said the right. Gain weight, more calories; lose weight, less calories. All right. The tricky, we can track our calories in, which we're going to get into that. Calories out is a little bit of a moving target. So it's really just important that you collect a bunch of data. So you keep track of everything. So that way you can look for the trends and understand sort of where you're at. And that's what our coaching process is all about, is teaching you how to track and look at those trends and use the numbers, the actual data, to sort of influence our behavior and our next steps in our weight loss journey, as opposed to just being like, oh, I feel fat. Not that anybody would ever let their emotions get in the way when it comes to nutrition coaching, right? So that's number one. That's the most important thing. Nothing changes really. You will not lose weight if you're taking in more calories than you're burning, period, right? That's just that. All right. So next up on the body composition hierarchy is protein. All right. This will have more to do with the shape of our body, meaning protein is what we build muscles out of. Muscles are what give us the look that we're going for, whether it's tone, tight, whatever. So you need protein to accomplish that. And here's the thing. Everything else is a distant third. And that's, a lot of people get caught up in the minutia, when really, if you just focus on those two things, calories in, calories out, and protein, you'll be good to go. Like the vast majority of the research basically says, studies done across time, when calories and protein are taken into account, so it's a calorie deficit, protein is equated, and then however you mix and match the rest of it, it basically all comes out the same, with very minor differences. So, and we're going to talk about that later, right? But everything else could be the carbs to fat ratio. We hear people talk about that a lot. Like I said, there was the 90s where everybody thought fat was the worst, and now it's sort of like the carbs are the worst, and it's like there's this sort of whole sensationalist, tendency of our society, but it doesn't matter as much as you think it does, at all. Nutrient timing is another big one. I can't eat after 7, or should I do intermittent fasting? These are important, and we'll talk about why. We'll talk about them, but just know that they're a distant third. Clean food, natural food. These are good. There's obviously benefits to those things, but what do they have to do with weight loss? We'll talk about that. This is a funny one. The Himalayan-ness of your sea salt, because I just feel like people get caught up in crazy details about their food that don't necessarily relate to the actual goal. All right. Again, we'll talk about it. All right. So calories in, calories out. First of all, you can track your calories in. You have pretty much 100% control of that. So if you track your calories in, you track your activity levels, and you track your weight daily, you'll use the law of averages to find what your maintenance number is. What does it take for you to maintain the weight that you're currently at? So when I say tracking your activity levels, it's not like calories burned on your Fitbit. Those things are always wrong. It's more just hour of weights today, 5 miles, stuff that's very you can, what I mean? You can track it very easily, and there's no guesswork in it. And then once you do that and you find that maintenance, now from there, you can decide if you're looking to gain weight or lose weight, if you need to reduce calories or increase calories. So calories out, not only does it vary by the individual. So 2 6-foot tall guys who weigh the same might have different what's called basal metabolisms, and it can change over time as well. And what I mean by that is just that our body adapts. Right. And so this is, sort of something we see a lot with chronic dieters, people who are you've probably heard this a lot. I don't eat enough. And so I go into starvation mode. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. So like if you are chronically under eating because you've been on a diet for 2 years or in and out of a diet for 2 years, your body just adapts, and now it just lowers your calories out. So it's not that you're not eating enough. It's that your body's not signaled to burn enough, because it's like your body's thinking famine, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to starve. I'm going to get very efficient with my food. But again, that can change. we can raise your base metabolism, which is really cool too. So, I'm going to use a reverse dieting as an example. I'm going to try not to get too crazy into this, but I think if I give you the broad strokes, you kind of understand what I'm talking about. So, let's just say I eat 3,000 calories a day, and that helped me maintain my weight. All right. Over the course of, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, which is kind of as long as you want to go in a really restricted calorie deficit. I lower those calories all the way down to 1,500. I lose a bunch of weight. Well, now my metabolism is not only slower because there's less of me. Like I've lost weight, I've lost fat, which is an organ. I've lost muscle, I've lost some water, and it takes less calories to do everyday stuff as a lighter version of myself. But also my body's starting to think famine, right? So it's like, oh, I'm going to get more and more and more efficient with my food. So the first 5 pounds or whatever are always easy to lose, because you're used to eating 3,000 calories and you eat 1,500, your body loses weight. But then it gets used to eating 1,500 and it knows that that's the intake and that's what it wants to hold on to. So as you come out of that, we call it reverse dieting. The worst thing you can do in that situation is go from a very low calorie diet right back to where you were in maintenance. Because you're running, your body's still in famine mode. So it's just going to be boom, it's going to store all that food because now it's very efficient with food. And we don't want it to be efficient with food. We don't want to be a Prius. We want to be a Hummer, right? 2 miles a gallon. We want to burn up all the food that we take in. And so reverse dieting is where you slowly, so I work my calories all the way down to 1,500 and I slowly creep them up over about another, it could be 12 weeks, back up to my maintenance levels. But the cool thing is, because I did it slowly and got my body slowly accustomed to eating more food while not gaining weight, I end up at higher basal metabolism. So the best case scenario is I had the highest possible ratio of calories to body weight. So if you do this right, and this is kind of where we're trying to go with our nutrition coaches. I'm in the middle of the process right now, where over the course of a year and a half, you end up, significantly less body fat, but eating way more food, and it's awesome. So anyway, that's kind of a side note actually, but that's what calories in, calories out means. You can track your food intake, and obviously your body burns a certain amount of fuel, but the amount of fuel your body burns is dependent on a bunch of outside factors. And so the best thing you can do for your body is to put it into a regular rhythm, right? Our bodies crave homeostasis. So eating the same, basically foods at, going to bed at the same time and just getting into a rhythm of life will help keep that as consistent as possible. All right, moving on. Protein's next in the hierarchy. Why? Well, it builds muscle, right? So as far as body composition goes, more muscle is always better. More protein promotes more satiety, right? It means you're full. If you feel more full, which is cool. The thermogenic effect, there's something to it, right? And what that means is it actually protein's hardest to break. It costs the most energy to build or to break down rather. So if I eat 100 grams of protein, or let's say 100 calories worth of protein, because of all the processes my body has to do to break it down and turn it into new muscle, I spend 15 calories, let's just say, on breaking it down. So it's only my net intake was 85, which is pretty cool, And then the other thing is, so most of us are trying to lose, we're in America, right? Most of us are trying to lose weight. So when you're in a calorie deficit, the calories, or being in a calorie deficit, just signals you to lose weight. And that's going to be from any combination of muscle, fat, water, or whatever, right? But if your calorie deficit is signaling your body to lose weight and you're eating enough protein, you will you'll hold on to muscle or even build a little bit of muscle, which means most of your weight loss is going to come from fat, which is what we want. We want to lose fat and keep muscle, right? So that's pretty much why protein is the most important next to calories in, calories out. Both complete and trace protein counts towards your total. So you may have heard the term complete proteins and amino acids. What that means is, think about it this way: there's muscles. Protein is the building block of muscles, and amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. And there's essential amino acids that are required to build muscle, and basically animal products have all those essential amino acids. Now, if you eat plant food, grains, vegetables, fruit, legumes, which is beans, they have protein in it as well. Like each food on its own doesn't have all 12 amino acids, but like that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like you still count those towards your total. So a lot of times people who are new to this are like, wow, that's a lot of protein. It doesn't have to be all the protein comes from chicken, right? Like you're gonna eat some chicken, you're gonna eat some fruits, some vegetables, some grains, and even though those grains and vegetables or whatever aren't complete proteins, they still count towards your total, because what's gonna happen is, like, let's say I eat rice, which has these 6 essential amino acids. Then I'm gonna eat beans, which has these 6 essential amino acids. To my body, it's all the same, and now I've got all 12, so it doesn't matter. All right. I can talk more about that later. That's kind of a side subject. Anyway, the biggest thing I hear is like getting enough protein is that it's hard. Like if you're new to this, and I joke, I say this with love. It's probably just you're not that good at cooking chicken, because like a serving size of protein the size of my palm right here, that's like 6 ounces cooked. That would be like 50 grams of protein. So if we're trying to do a pound per a gram of protein per pound of body weight, like 3 of these and then some vegetables and grains, and everybody's covered. So that's eating a piece of chicken or salmon or whatever at every meal. Like it seems like a big number in your mind. It's not that hard. The hardest thing is that, just like generally speaking, if you're new to this sort of whole deal, you're gonna dry your chicken out and just not know what to do with it. And a lot of times, like with diet food, we lose our creativity. Like, oh, it's got to be chicken and broccoli, and that's all I can have. And it's like, no, you'll get better at preparing it over time, I promise. And when you can make the foods enjoyable, getting that protein in isn't that hard. So it's a lot of just like trial and error and figuring out what you like. Okay. I have a feeling that you guys are good to go with that, because you're a smart bunch. All right. Everything else. So, like I said, everything else is a distant third to just calories and protein. So I'm gonna start that by saying sustainability is the most important consideration. So of all these things we can do, high carb diets, high fat diets, timing our nutrients, fasting, eating all clean foods, like whatever the case is, they all have certain benefits or whatever, but really all of that pales in comparison to the question, can I sustain this for the rest of my life? Okay, because this is a long-term process. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go through each sort of category of everything else that I listed and talk about it and how it's going to be helpful and how it may not be helpful. And, then you can kind of figure it out from there. But yeah, let's start with high carb, right? What's the benefit there? Enjoyable equals sustainable. Most people enjoy carbohydrates. They're the most easily digested. They start digesting in their mouth. And because of that, it just like lights up dopamine in our brain. You enjoy eating carbs. It's generally pretty convenient, especially for social situations. It's actually better for aesthetics too. So for those who are, heavily, like our workouts skew towards weightlifting and that sort of thing, we'll be pulling more glycogen into our muscles, and we'll look more muscular, which is pretty cool. And so if you've ever known somebody who's gone on a diet or whatever, not even necessarily low carb, but just a low calorie diet in general, they deplete their glycogen stores. So glycogen is the carbohydrate stored in your muscles. It's kind of suspended with water in your muscle, and if you're not replenishing it with carbs, it depletes, right? And that is when you piss a bunch of water out, and basically all your muscles look flat. So by keeping carbs on your diet, along with a strong weightlifting schedule, you'll look more muscular, or toned, or tight, or however you want to say it, right? Which is pretty cool. Let's talk about benefits of high fat, right? Keto. So first of all, keto, there's a lot of research being done on it now, and there's a lot of alternative or I shouldn't even say alternative. There's a lot of health benefits outside of weight loss and body composition. So for example, I know there's been a lot of study done on the military, like people like the Navy SEALs. Who doesn't want to talk about Navy SEAls these days? But basically, I guess there's some sort of air recycling apparatus they use underwater so they can remain underwater for a long time. And something, I don't understand, but then they all end up having seizures, right? So being on a ketogenic diet somehow rewires their brain where they stop having seizures, which is pretty cool. Now, what does that have to do with you and weight loss? Nothing, which is why it's so far down on the hierarchy, right? But here are some benefits for you. First of all, it has been shown to increase satiety. So you feel more full on a high-fat diet, which is like, let's face it, if you're in a calorie deficit, you're eating less than you take in. It's like, and all you can think about is food. That sucks. So if you feel full all the time, cool. Like that's definitely a benefit. It makes intermittent fasting easier. So intermittent fasting, another very popular way to lose weight, which we're going to talk about next. It makes it easier if you're not starving all the time. And then a lot of people report they have more mental clarity on the higher fat diets. Cool. I mean, again, that's the individual, right? So if that's the way you feel, well, do the thing that makes you feel good, right? Let's keep going on everything else. All right. So IF, that's intermittent fasting. Here's the cool thing. This is probably like, I don't really even, like, I wouldn't consider myself like an intermittent faster. Like, side note, I don't identify with being an intermittent faster, just like I don't identify with being keto or I don't identify with being paleo. If you are looking at your diet as a religion or an identity, you're doing it wrong. Let's get back to this. Because the reason I say that is because these are just tools to achieve an end, right? And so don't get wrapped up in like, don't let emotions get in the way of a choice that's should be very rational and pragmatic. Okay. All right. So let's go back to intermittent fasting. It allows you to have bigger meals. So if I'm trying to lose weight and I'm in a calorie deficit and I'm eating 2 meals a day instead of 3, guess what? Each one of those meals just got 50% bigger, right? Awesome. So now I can still get that feeling of feeling full and eating a big meal, which is, very enjoyable to humans. It's convenient. Skipping breakfast is convenient. Like, do not have to break up your morning routine to cook. Like, that's awesome. One of my favorite benefits of intermittent fasting, it alleviates decision fatigue. What do I mean by that? Well, rather than having to decide what to eat for a certain meal, right? Or let's say you're fasting through lunch at work and everybody's going out to, fast food or to a restaurant or something, and you have to make these decisions about what to get off the menu that best aligns with your goals. Those decisions wear you out. So now you don't even have to make a decision. You're just not eating, and now you've alleviated decision fatigue, which shows that, so that's been studied, and what that does is that allows you to use more willpower later. So the more decisions we make, the more it wears on our willpower. All right. Cool. And then we'll talk about nutrient timing. So I guess intermittent fasting is a form of nutrient timing, but there's the whole like, should I eat or could I not eat past 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or what's the magic number? Okay. Well, let's talk about that real quick. So yes, going to bed on a full stomach will actually, it will lead to less restful sleep. Okay. Does that direct your weight or your fat gain or your muscle gain directly? Not directly. No, not directly. But you have enough restless sleep over time. You get the sleep deficit. It does, whack out your hormone profile, your ghrelin and your insulin, which are going to make you feel more hungry. It's going to jack up your cortisol, which again is going to make you feel more hungry. So you can be susceptible to cravings, which will full circle bring you back to giving into cravings and eating more calories than you take in. So it's not a direct benefit or detriment. It's not direct either way, but it's got some impacts. And the thing is, though, it's not a magic number. It's basically just like if you go to sleep in a fasted state, is what you need to get the most restful sleep. In a fasted state, it only takes like 90 to 120 minutes to get into. So if you go to bed at 9, like I do, you finish dinner at 7. You are totally good to go, or 7:30. Like, you're fine. It's more like if you are pounding Oreos and stuff at 8 o'clock or 8:30, and then trying to go right to bed at 9, you're just not going to have as good a sleep. Okay, I think I belabored that one. Okay. Food before and after workouts. I'll be honest with you. I did this all of last year. I was very particular with it. Pre, intra, and post workout. And I will say, my workouts felt really good. I had a lot of energy. I felt really very strong, and it was awesome. I got away from it because it's not convenient. Another decision I have to make in the morning, another bag I have to pack. Done. I cut it out in terms just in the name of pragmatism, right? So, can it help you workouts? Yes. Will workouts help your body composition results? Well, yeah, sure. A better workout, you can do more work because you got more energy. You can work harder and get more muscle gain or get more fit or whatever. But at the end of the day, like if it's weighing on you and it's making the rest of your life harder, like just get it out of there. Yeah, so just going back to it, does it make life easier? That's the main question. Is whatever I'm doing making my life easier? And if the answer is no, then the juice isn't worth the squeeze, as I like to say. The benefit is worth the work. So there are a few more we're going to talk about. So clean eating, right? And this is another one where it makes intuitive sense, right? Like your grandma always told you to eat vegetables, and because they're healthier for you. And you know what? That's 100% true. So let's start here. Like there's no one definition of clean eating. So ambiguity is always a bad thing. So it's like some people think grains are bad. Some people think dairy is bad. Some people think grains and dairy are bad. Some people think nightshades are bad, which is like tomatoes. Like, so there's really no definition, but let's just say generally speaking, it's vegetables and protein. And for some people like whole grains. Well, first of all, you're generally going to have a higher micronutrient content. That's a big plus. Generally, you're going to have a higher fiber content, which is better for digestion and nutrient absorption. And because of those two things, the higher fiber, the better absorption, the better micronutrients, you'll have greater satiety. And obviously, like just in the long run, better health because you're going to have more micronutrients and fiber. Like that's a good thing. That being said, one of the biggest drawbacks of eating clean is that it doesn't take into account the calories. So this is sort of like why we shifted away from like the paleo model in our gym. Like we did that. We were a whole 9 licensed facility, whatever that, this is a long time ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I got away from it because people were like, well, I'm eating food. I mean, like I haven't cheated, which I'm going to talk about that in psychology in a second. I haven't gone off the list. I haven't cheated, but I'm gaining weight. It's because it doesn't take in the most basic premise of calories in, calories out, which is number one in the hierarchy. And so if you're eating like a bunch of avocados and almonds and, ghee, which is clarified butter, all these things that are on the quote unquote the paleo list, the clean eating list, well, just because they're good foods, you're still eating like 5,000 calories of them, you're going to gain weight. And so that's sort of the oh man, I don't know if catch-22 is the word, but like basically it's like, oh, I'm eating all these healthy foods, but then it causes you to gain weight, and basically excess body fat is the driver of like the majority of the quote unquote Western diseases, cardiac illness and diabetes and all the metabolic derangement, all that stuff. So it's like, so you're eating healthy, except you're eating too much healthy food, and then you end up less healthy because of it, where it's like, if somebody's eating like less clean, I put that in parentheses, but they're staying in their calorie balance and they're maintaining a high amount of muscle. Well, in the long run, they're going to be healthier because they're not going to have the excess body fat driving the metabolic syndrome and the heart disease and the insulin resistance, which leads to diabetes and like all this stuff, right? Like, so it's that's the deal with it. And then I just want to get back to then too, like a lot of like this is probably my biggest beef with clean eating. And like take that for what's real. I don't hate vegetables. It's more I don't like guilt associated with food. And I don't like the black and white thinking of that there's a healthy food and an unhealthy food. Like that to me is just like, we are humans, we're complicated creatures, our lives are complicated, and we know that there's context for everything. So like we can go down these rabbit holes of like sort of thinking, good, bad, I cheated on my meal plan, or this food is bad and I feel guilty, and like, man, that's not a good place to be. And more more than anything, I feel like people fall down that rabbit hole when they label things black and white, healthy, unhealthy. So I just stay away from it. Is the general prognosis of more vegetables and more lean meat like a pretty good diet? It really is, right? But that doesn't mean that everything else is going to give you cancer tomorrow. So that's just what I got out of it. And then the Himalayan-ness of your sea salt. So this is just like, people get kind of funky about like how food is sourced and you know, where it came from, like all this stuff. And I just want to address that real quick. So like grass-fed whey is a great example. So it is true, grass-fed cattle have a healthier fatty acid profile. That's 100% true. So it's like, well, wouldn't it stand to reason then that grass-fed whey is better for you? Yes, it would stand to reason that, except that whey doesn't have any fat in it. And so the number one benefit of number one health benefit of having a grass-fed cow is completely negated by the product that you're getting from it, because the product doesn't even have any fat to get that benefit anyway. And then, you know, as far as grass-fed beef, it's the same thing. There are a million reasons to eat grass-fed beef, and I'm a huge proponent of it. Again, there is the healthier fatty acid profile. There is this sustainability in which they're farmed, which, you know what I mean? If you want to be environmentally responsible, there's something to that. How about just the humanity of it? Like, some people aren't comfortable with, you know, eating what's it called, factory farm food and all that, and they want their cows to roam free in pasture, and I get that. There's 100% something to that. So yeah, those are reasons to eat grass-fed beef, but just know they don't have to do with weight loss or even health necessarily. And so when we're looking at that, if that's the thing we put on the pedestal, like, oh, I want to know the cow's name, and I want a family portrait with her and her grandkids before I eat the steak, right? Like, that's fine, except that that's going to be really inconvenient if every time you need a source of protein, you have to drive like out to the farm in Iowa to get it. You know what I mean? And so I'm actually, that's kind of the thing I'm into, is I really do wish, you know, we would push more towards treating animals more humanely and putting some limits on that and the way we farm and stuff like that. I don't want you to get caught up in it thinking that's going to help you with weight loss. Fair? All right. So big picture. So like, how do you even do this? Well, you set your calories first. So, you know, going back to tracking, you find your maintenance calories, and then if you want to lose weight, you start cutting calories. If you want to gain weight, you add calories. Generally speaking, 500 a day is a great starting point for losing weight. 200 to 300 a day is a great starting point for gaining muscle. Have a protein minimum. So generally, you know, a pound or a gram of protein per pound of body weight is, you're not going to go wrong with it. It's going to be enough. It's going to be more than enough. It's going to keep you full. And if I'm being honest with you, like, I don't think it's that hard to do once you get used to it. Give it a week, you'll be fine. If you feel like it's a lot. For me, I was like, that's so easy for me. But that's, you know, that's net. I'm not trying to brag about how much I like meat. I'm just saying, like, if you're naturally bent towards enjoying meat, that's really not hard. If you're naturally bent towards not eating that much meat, it will take you like a week or two to get accustomed to. It won't be that bad. All right. So once you have those two things, the carb and the fat distribution is up to you. So if you're trying to lose weight, you know, and you want to try the high fat things to feel fuller longer, awesome. If there's specific activities, like you have an active job, or you participate in endurance sports, or you're a lifter, then you're going to take those things into consideration, right? But the biggest thing to know is that there's not a right or wrong answer. There's literally world record ultra endurance or ultra marathon record holders. Like, so the guys who hold the records on like the two toughest courses, one is a staunch proponent of keto, one is a staunch proponent of carb loading and eating carbs light races. Like, it's individual. That's what I'm trying to say. Lifting, you're probably going to be more bent towards carbs. But again, try it out for yourself, right? So the answer is that there is no answer. Context matters. This isn't black and white. So we're strong proponents at our gym of the Snowflake Diet, right? So Snowflake, we are all made out of frozen water, but we all have our own unique patterns. So what you need to do, you got to do the work to find the you diet, right? It's the Paul diet, it's the Susie diet, it's the Bob diet, you know, like whatever. You find what works for you. And here's the thing, having a foundation and routine like a grown-up will allow you to stick with that diet. And then when it's time to switch, because you're like, hey, I want to try this new thing, you'll really know the benefits of switching your diet if you know what your diet was before. So if I'm in a routine, so let me rephrase that. Like if I'm going to bed at the same time each night, I'm waking up at the same time each day, I'm eating more or less the same foods, and I'm tracking my calories, and I'm feeling like I'm in a good rhythm, and I decide I want to try keto, let's just say, well, cool. Well, I'll go keto for whatever, a couple weeks. And because I had such a strong foundation, I knew how I felt before, and I knew what I was taking in before, then I can really understand those benefits of the ketogenic diet. Or maybe not benefit. Maybe I don't like it. I don't know. Right? But I'll understand the differences. But if you're all over the place to begin with, you have no routine, your sleep is all over the place, your stress is all over the place, it's a different meal plan each week, depending on if you're hitting the drive-through or if you're eating leftovers. Well, then when you go like, all right, I'm going to get my act together and try this keto thing, you're going to be like, oh, this sucks, right? Because you're not going to know where you were coming from, so you're not going to be able to truly appreciate the benefits. So where we start with everybody is just a bedrock of routine. You know what I mean? Get that routine down, know what you're taking in from a food standpoint, but get your sleep and schedule dialed in as well. And then from there, any changes you make to it, you'll be able to be really aware of if those changes are positively or negatively affecting you, or if there's pros and cons, then you can really decide the pros and cons, but you can't make those decisions if you don't have a routine to begin. Cool? That's all I'd be trying to say about that. And this is more like aimed at me. But like, I know we're all guilty of it. Like, when I was a kid, I always go to bed, like, yeah, turn the TV off. My mom would come and unplug the TV and like send me to bed. It was like funny. She was onto something, right? Yeah, here I am, a grown up, and I still, it took me many, many years to really appreciate the importance of going to bed on time. Anywho, where do you start? All right, so listen, this is where I said I'm not going to give you specific recommendations. Well, this would be what would be considered a balanced diet. Like, this is enough protein, it's enough fat, it's enough carb. Start there. If you have no idea where to start, find your maintenance calories, divide it up, and do it this way. And I can show you how to do the arithmetic later. You know what? I'll just show you how to do it now. Right? Because why not? Here's how to do that. All right, so if I eat 1,500 calories a day, $450 calories from protein, right? Because that's my 30%, which equals 112.5 grams of protein per day. I mean, that's it, right? 600 calories from carbs. $150 grams of carbs a day. 450 calories from fat. From fat. Frats are pretty sweet. It's 50 grams of fat per day. That's all there is to it. Start there. So obviously all of that hinges around this number right here, which 1,500, a lot of normal size, like average size people will start there. Women might be a little bit lower, men might be a little bit higher, but I was just using that as an anchor point. But start by just tracking your intake for a week and just see what it is. And then you can divide it up, and then you can try and hit that number using these percentages, if that makes sense. All right, gang, it has been a slice. I've enjoyed chatting with you. Well, it's great because I had a captive audience. But, this is, we went through a lot today, but hopefully it was informative for you. Hopefully you have an idea of where to start. And, obviously any questions you have, just hit me up. All right, have a good one, folks.